What's going on YouTube? It's Teach back again with another video, and today we're talking about my updated 2023 cornerback rankings as we move closer to the 2023 NFL Draft. Before we get started, I have a couple of things I would love for you guys to comment. First, like obviously new graphics package, and we're going to do it a little differently today. We're going to start with tier 1 and work our way down. Do you like the changes here? Do you like the new graphics? Do you like starting with the top and moving down, or do you like how I've previously done it? Do you like the old graphics, and do you like starting from the bottom and working up to 1 and then transition to honorable mention? So let me know what you think down below in the comment section. What's your preference? And of course, while you're down there, comment your cornerback rankings. You know, what's your 1 through 5? What's your 1 through 10, depending on how big of a list you want to give. And then maybe what's a name I didn't include that you're like, come on, this guy's got to be in the mix. He's got to be one of your top 18 corners, because we're talking about 18 corners today. So be sure to leave me your favorite corners and maybe favorite sleepers down below in the comments section. But like I said, we're going to start at the top. So we begin with tier 1. I think all three of these guys in tier 1, superstar potential. The guys below this still could be superstars, but these top three I feel the most confident about. For Christian Gonzalez, it's this awesome blend of a high floor and a high ceiling. 6'2", awesome athletic traits, runs a good 40, explosive vertical and broad jump, and he's just such a fluid mover. I've heard some maybe knock that the urgency out of a break, right? Like being able to plant his back foot and go get the football or go make a play on a wide receiver. Maybe it's not as insane as the rest of his profile, but if that's like the one lacking athletic limitation he has, and it's not really a limitation, it's just not insane like the rest of everything else about Christian Gonzalez, I'm fine with that. And also, I think part of the reason maybe it doesn't look that violent and like an insane break on the ball, it's just because he glides, man. He really is such a fluid moving athlete. Him and Zay Flowers, I've been saying this whole cycle, those two guys just move differently, man. Like, it's effortless. So love that athletic and then the size traits of Gonzalez, but also just even on tape, just comfortable playing in man and zone, and you can play at the line of scrimmage, you can play off, you can do so many different things with him. Whatever your defense is asking, Christian Gonzalez fits into that. And again, I think he's NFL ready, brings that floor, but with his traits and his size, this guy has a really, really high ceiling. That takes us into Devin Witherspoon. So not quite the upside I think Gonzalez has, but he's probably the most NFL ready of these guys, so he does have that leg up on Gonzalez. A little bit smaller, and it was a tough point to separate him and Joey Porter Jr., who should be 2, who should be 3. I'll take the NFL readiness of Witherspoon. Not that I think Porter Jr. isn't NFL ready, but I will take my assuredness in Witherspoon being ready to go day 1 versus the length and the size of Joey Porter Jr. But we'll also talk about one more thing that maybe give me a little pause, maybe a little bit of hesitation against Porter Jr. But Witherspoon, such a gifted athlete. And we didn't see him run the 40, but when it comes to his acceleration, he's at his top speed in like 2 to 3 steps. In his agility, he is fantastic moving laterally, and he's so sudden that he's able to match and mirror any wide receiver across from him. And that's his bread and butter. And then his tackling ability and how hard of a hitter he is. I don't hold tackling against corners, but if you're a hard hitter, that's just kind of the cherry on top. It's just like, oh, okay, great. You can be an impact player, and you can help stop the run, and you're going to make ball carriers think twice about coming in your direction. Like, awesome. And Witherspoon definitely has that. I mean, he put a number of hits on a tape where it's like, sheesh. I mean, you're a corner, and you're 5'11", 180. I mean, that's the other issue here that you have to talk about. He's a little small, especially compared to some of the other top-tier corners in this year's class, and maybe that does lead to him like hitting his way out of his career, and it's a shorter career because of it. But I could also see, because of that, if he doesn't take too big of a toll on his body, maybe by year 8, 9, or 10 or whatever, he moves inside and plays the slot and has like a Charles Woodson-esque arc, or plays some safety and pulls a page out of the playbook of Kareem Jackson. I could see Witherspoon having that type of late career versatility. But day 1, you're getting the most NFL ready man press corner, and such a gifted and sudden athlete. Wish I knew what the 40 was, but he does everything else so well, agility and acceleration standpoint, that I'm not really concerned about it. And he's, like I said, he's NFL ready, and that you can't put a price tag on that. And then Joey Porter Jr. So talked about, it's not that I don't think he's NFL ready, but I just am so certain that Witherspoon is. Then the other knock that I wanted to bring up with Joey Porter Jr., again, tier 1. Like, I love Joey Porter Jr. He should go top half the first round, at worst 17 to Pittsburgh. But he didn't run that 3 cone. And that stands out to me because like 4.45, 40, it's like, okay, you knew you could do a solid enough number. You knew you could garner a good enough result for being a 6'2.5" corner. You knew the 34-inch arms were going to impress, right? Like, you played the game. But because of that, like, what's that 3 cone? What's your lateral movement like? That could be a bit of an issue. And can you go break on the football? Can you go make a play on a receiver and break up a contested catch spot? Can you do that? or are you solely someone who needs to backpedal? But even like, I think he's a great man press corner in the making, but depending on that 3-cone, like, can you keep up with an inside slant? Like, that could be an issue. Zigs, like, what are you doing there? So a little bit of a, pause, and it gives me a little bit of hesitation, but otherwise gotten better year over year at Penn State. Hasn't really been testing the air. Only one career interception. I think that's because he's 6'2.5" with 34-inch arms. I mean, that's that's a dream. Not even prototypical. That is like coveted size and arm length for a man press corner. I think he'll be good in cover 2, 4, 6, all those similar concepts, just in zone. And maybe cover 3 because of the 3-cone gives you a little bit of pause, but I think he'll be fantastic at the NFL level. And I honestly think that he'll be fine in cover 3 defenses too. I don't think he'll be any sort of limitation or liability in any defense you have him in. Take a chance on that size. Take a chance on 4.45 speed, and I don't think the 3-cone's terrible, but it stands out to me because he didn't run it. Then we get to tier 2. Deonte Banks will start us off, and the other guy in tier 2 that I thought I almost added one more guy too, but the other person in tier 2 is a really interesting compliment to Deonte Banks, who has everything you want in a man coverage corner. 6 foot, 200 pounds, 4.35 speed. I mean, need I say more, right? Good arm length as well. And you even see it on his tape. Like, he's sticky. I mean, he is with wide receivers stride for stride. Just the ball skills that leave, room for growth. Now, I think that is correctable. I think that's coachable. And I think with some time, that could be a concern that's eased, right? But right now, it's like, man, you're always at the catch point. You're always there. Just not making enough plays. But again, I think that you can bank on that being corrected, and maybe that's just bad side of variance too. Maybe it's just bad luck, and maybe, fortunes will change and turn for a positive for Banks at the NFL level. So really like Banks, and I think he should go somewhere in the top 20, top 25, and anything after that, yeah, that's an absolute steal. So, 18 to 25, I think is about a good value for him, and then anything after that is an absolute steal. But then moving on to the rest of tier 2, Cam Smith. So where Deonte Banks has awesome size and the 4.35 speed, Cam Smith, 6 foot, 190, maybe a little bit under 6 foot, maybe 5'11 and a half. Then he runs 4.43, which is a good number. Don't get me wrong, that's a good number, and he is a well-built unit. Like, he's just good versus like Banks has really good size and great athletic traits. Smith's a good athlete and a solid frame. But where he makes up for it is those ball skills. So again, kind of the complete inverse of Deonte Banks here. If the ball's in the air, Smith locates it in the blink of an eye and he gets his hands on it, whether it's an interception or a PBU. He is going to be there at the catch point. He's going to contest. And I love that about him. And it kind of makes up for where, I've said this plenty of times here on the channel, where like J.C. Horn was like the press man corner built out of a lab with the athletic traits and his size and his physicality and his aggressiveness too, wanting to go get guys to the line of scrimmage. I think Smith fits into just about any defense. I think he can be a man press corner, maybe not to the same level of J.C. Horn, but also with what we knew about these two prospects before the NFL draft, he has the superior ball skills. So it's a little bit of a yin and yang here. What's your flavor? And comparing Smith and Banks, it's like, so I want to draft Deonte Banks because he has everything I could imagine a man press corner could have. We just got to clean up the ball skills. Or do we say, hey, Cam Smith, may not be the gaudiest of athletes, but he's already ready. Like, let's go take him, and he's ready to go. So again, pick your flavor, and it really could go either way. Then in tier 3, I really thought about Julius Brents in tier 2, but decided to hold off on my love for him and be a little bit more realistic to where I think the NFL is at right now. But nonetheless, headlining tier 3, he's 6'3" with 34-inch arms. He runs a 6.633 cone. I mean, that's insane. Played at 2 different schools, so it's good to see him be able to leave one place, adjust to a new culture, and also learn a new playbook. Didn't play a whole lot at Iowa, but nonetheless was there for 3 years and learned the playbook. And I think he played like 278 snaps or almost 300 snaps his second year there, so saw the field some. And then, becomes a bigger impact player and starts to see a lot more at K-State. And that's a defense that mixes it up. Iowa's zone heavy and zone exclusive almost. K-State, a little bit more NFL-ish blend of man and zone. So good to see him be able to hold his own there. And that 6.633 cone and those arms and that size, it's like, you want to put him in zone? Okay, great. Let him play a lane. Let him understand his assignment and just like stick those long arms into, receiving pockets and break it up. Or because of that 6.633 cone, I don't feel he's the liability in man coverage at all. Like, he can go stride for stride and match any break a wide receiver throws his way. Oh, while doing it at 6'3" with 34-inch arms. So I love me some Julius Brents, and I think he's a really underrated prospect this year. And then we get to Keely Ringo. Not nearly laterally gifted like a Julius Brents or some of the other guys we talked about earlier on, but man, has the size, has the strength, and kind of a thick build. So kind of like JC Horn, but he's even a little bigger than Horn, where it's just like, yeah, that guy is meant to be a physical football player and go get guys to the line of scrimmage. That's definitely what you would draft Kelee Ringo for. And then the 4.36 40, so definitely straight line fast. I do worry about the lateral movement skills, but maybe that can even be coached up and polished up with, reworking his footwork and things like that. But if you need man press corner, and because of that, I think, again, cover 2-4-6 is in his wheelhouse. Cover 2, you're pressing at the line and then squatting at the line of scrimmage. Cover 4 is basically man coverage, just off. And then cover 6, same thing. It's just changing what the safeties and the nickel corners are doing. So I think he is very scheme versatile because of that. Maybe cover 3, you think about it and you pause and you're like, is this really the fit? But otherwise, I think Kelee Ringo is a really fun prospect. And even in 2021, I think his play was a little better than 2022. But they also lost their defensive coordinator after that 2021 season. They became more of a zone team in 2022. So I do wonder if that was part of the reason why he didn't take that step forward. He was like my way too early cornerback 1, if memory serves. If he wasn't 1, then he was 2. And maybe that change in DC and then going to a zone-heavy defense wasn't the right fit for Kelee Ringo. And then Tyreek Stevenson, again, man press specialist, cover 2-4-6 because of it. I think he could fit into that. And maybe not as insane of size and arm length as a Kelee Ringo, but man, the Senior Bowl, he was just balling out, and guys were struggling to get away from the line of scrimmage against Stevenson. So we've gotten to see him do it at that senior circuit, which is always a big boost to your draft stock. Solid size, good athletic traits. I think Ringo has a just beat there in both those departments. That's why I have him just ahead of Stevenson, but I don't think you're going wrong with Tyreek Stevenson by any imagination. That takes us into tier 4 here. And, where tier 1 was like my superstar potential. My tier 2, I think those guys can definitely be stars. And then my tier 3, there's definitely some upside there. They just kind of have their own flaws and their own kind of quirks, right? It's really just 2 years of playing experience for Brent, lateral movement for Ringo, and kind of the same issue for Stevenson. Then we get into tier 4, and it's like, man, these guys all kind of maybe have one thing against them, but I could totally see them becoming NFL-ready starters and like pretty good starters at that. So DJ Turner, a little bit small, and he kind of gets bullied, because he's a little bit light, but dude, 4.26 40, and apparently runs like a 6.68 3-cone or something crazy like that. Now it's, going back to Bruce Feldman's, freak list and some of the stuff that he's heard, but dude, that 3-cone plus his 40, I mean, you see it on tape. Like, he is straight line fast, and he breaks on the football like no other. And just like Devin Witherspoon, rather, so sudden. Like, a receiver throws him a move, and he's able to, mirror and adjust. That agility and acceleration is so special. And he had a good year this past year at Michigan. I think man zone flexible. I think he can do either. It really comes down to how you feel about his size and will he get bullied at the line of scrimmage. But like, if the Chargers saw DJ Turner in the second round, they were like, hey, let's just get a Michael Davis insurance, a JC Jackson insurance. I would love that fit, putting that type of an athlete into that type of a defense. Then Emmanuel Forbes, ball production. I do think the interception number does come with a fair amount of luck. There's a handful of tip picks into his account, but you can't fake 17 PBUs. So the interception number 14, yeah, maybe that's a little inflated. 17 PBUs, that's all you, dog. Like, that, you had to make that play. So I do think the ball skills are there and the ball production is good. And he's 6'1", so he's got solid size. And Mississippi State's kind of turned to this solid cornerback, factory. Cam Dantzler, obviously waived by the Vikings, but I still like Cam Dantzler, right? And a few other guys that have come out in some of the last few drafts. So they're starting to become a little bit of a pipeline, not nearly the state of like Ohio State and LSU and Alabama, but the little mini version of DBU. My issue with Forbes is 166. So where Turner's a little small, a little light, Forbes is definitely light. Do you think his arm length and his 6'1" stature makes up for it? That comes down to your opinion. I just worry 166, like, he'll get boxed out. Like, there is no way that a receiver running a curl is not going to have Forbes boxed out of that play, right? And I even think deep down the field, like T. Higgins, just going up and winning it and out-muscling him, kind of. And also 166, like, what's that look like in the run game? Because teams are going to start running right at you. So I even pondered in one of my previous mocks, I was like, maybe he could play on the inside. But, the more I think about it, this guy should be playing as far away from the line of scrimmage as possible in regards to, like, the center and the quarterback, and the running back and all that stuff. Because you put him in the nickel, and teams are going to solely run right at him. They're going to run directly to him. Wide zone, that's going to be an issue. So yeah, try to keep him away from, wherever the running back is, and yeah, try to not have him be a factor in the run game, because 166 pounds, that's a bit of an issue for me. But I still like the ball production. I still think he's a really good player. And 6'1", I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibilities. He gets to the NFL and adds 15 pounds of muscle, and then all of a sudden we're talking about 6'1", 181, and that's small. That's a little light, but I think you can make more manage. You can manage that a little bit better. Then we get Eli Ricks. Really good football player when we've gotten to see him. Just hasn't really seen the field a whole lot. Does come with some injury concerns. Solid size, 6'2", and also like 88th percentile arm length. So that's where he wins. Arms, and he's only about 188 pounds, so I wish he could add a little bit more bulk there. But, hey, again, that 180-ish pound mark is a good point for Forbes to try to get to. But Ricks, size and arm length, and this guy is going to be man press specialist, and again, cover 246 off of that. I wish we could have seen it more at college, because then I feel that much more sure about it. But not the fastest straight line guy, but I also think he makes up for it with acceleration. He gets into his top speed, and especially in man press, that back pedal, he does not lose a step where someone's running straight at him. He could backpedal and keep up, and then be able to turn, flip his hips, and go stride for stride with the guy. So, like a lot of what we've gotten to see out of Eli Ricks, his concern here, where Turn is a little small, Forbes a little light, Ricks, it's like the playing size, like the playing size sample. I wish we just could have seen more of him at college to just kind of ease or make sure of what we know we see, and prove that, like, yeah, no, that's just Eli Ricks. It's not, this is a good play, he's having a good game or whatever. It's Eli Ricks is just a stud. And honestly, if you double his games played and his snaps, he's probably way higher up on this list. And then Garrett Williams. So a guy that should have had the breakout, but ultimately just kind of didn't. Got hurt against Notre Dame, but great footwork, solid size, good athleticism, and a guy that feels like he should be a man coverage corner, but played in a zone-heavy defense. So again, you put him in like a quarters-heavy defense. If Jonathan Gannon still wants to run a lot of quarters, he also sprinkles in some cover one man and whatnot. But cover four, like, Garrett Williams will be a stud. The Chargers, the Arizona Cardinals, a few other teams could make for a really, really interesting ad, just because he played so much zone, but he looks like a man press corner. That might be the perfect environment for him to step into. But also think, if you run a lot of man, he'll be just fine. And I think there was a reason. A lot of people were anticipating that breakout this year. He just got hurt, so we didn't get to see it. And that's why he's in tier 4. And then we get to tier 5, and this is kind of basically my honorable mention tier, and this will continue on to the next screen. Clark Phillips is by far the highest nickel corner I have on the list. I do think he will be nickel only. Sub 30-inch arms is kind of a tough benchmark for you not to pass, in my opinion. So because of that, I got him here at 15. But nevertheless, I mean, one of the best players on one of the best defenses in college football, sticky in coverage, also a sure tackler, and a relatively hard hitter as well. So I don't want to over or underestimate what Clark Phillips brings to the table. I just worry about that arm length and that maybe putting him into a slot-only role. That being said, one final point here with Clark Phillips. I say this all the time, and that's why I have no problem putting him ahead of other outside-based corners. Nickel's the new base. You're going to have 3 corners on the field almost all the time. So having that third corner, maybe it takes him out of first-round conversations, but anywhere on day 2, I can understand why a team would want to add Clark Phillips into the mix. The rest of tier 5, Darius Rush, love his arm length, love what we got to see at the Senior Bowl, and honestly, solid tape to go with it. Good athletic profile, solid frame, and then again with those arms, I think he becomes a really interesting player at the next level. Maybe a little overlooked because of Cam Smith, but honestly, in a lot of ways, as good, maybe even just a little bit better. A couple more PBUs this past year than Cam Smith, and Smith started to get in trouble with penalties and getting a little handsy. Darius Rush didn't really have those issues, so you could even make an argument. Like, I don't agree, obviously, based off my rankings, but if somebody said, yeah, I like Rush more than Smith, I'd be like, oh, interesting. Okay, well, explain to me why, but I would at least hear them out. It's not like blasphemous by any stretch. Then we get Jalen Jones at 15, and a couple of these guys, the reason their school is still in white is just because it was hard to see their team or their school with the hex color in there. So apologies, this was not a typo or error or anything. It's just you couldn't read the Texas A&M like maroon against the dark gray. Tangent aside, you didn't ask, but Jalen Jones to me just is like ready to be a cover 3 starting corner. Has the size, not really tested a whole lot at Texas A&M, so I wish I could have seen more of what he looks like, working one-on-one with a corner. What does he look like in the air and stuff like that, but nevertheless, not letting guys get open speaks volumes about what he could potentially be. Good athlete, and again, 6'2" with those arms. Man press and cover 246. You're starting to see a big theme here. This is a deep cornerback class, and I've been saying for a while that the cornerback room is the best single position group in this year's draft class, and this is why. Because Jalen Jones, we're talking about a guy, if he went somewhere on day 2, I'd be like, yeah, that's a good addition for that team. That's a solid ad. But because there's so many, like, I could see a world where Jalen Jones is available at the beginning of the 4th round, and a team's just going to be able to draft a starting caliber corner right away. And then Riley Moss, good size, really fluid athlete, good movement skills, and plays at a zone-heavy school at Iowa, so maybe not your man coverage guy. But if you run out almost exclusively zone, Riley Moss makes a ton of sense. And he has been one of the best zone coverage corners in college football. Granted, at Iowa, and, didn't have the best games against some of the stiffer competition that they played, like Ohio State, but nonetheless was still a solid Big Ten corner at a Power 5 conference, has the size, has the athletic ability, and if you run a lot of zone, I think Riley Moss is a sleeper pick in the cornerback room. And then Travius Hodges-Tomlinson, the easy comp here is kind of Jason Verrett. He's a scrappy, physical, small corner, but he is 5'8" and like 170 or 160 something pounds, but he plays like he's 6'1" and 200 pounds. Like, he just goes at you. And I love that kind of mentality. So maybe that skews my perspective a little bit here, but also really good in coverage. Like, I don't think he's a liability there. You clean up some of the penalties that he had this year, I think you're getting a really solid nickel corner right up to jump. And then Ja'Cory Bennett, not maybe the most clean of film by any stretch, but you look at his combine and it's like, yeah, I want to figure out how to get that guy on the field, because he's an insane athlete. 40, broad, vertical, just fast and explosive. And what more could you ask for? 5'11", 190. I think he does end up playing in the nickel, but maybe could still play on the outside. But room to grow when it comes to his actual on-field tape. But that being said, that type of an athlete, you draft them high. And I know he's got some supporters, and, kind of like Deonte Banks, where maybe it's not totally polished. There are still things you see, and it's like, yeah, this guy in a man-heavy defense, like, I could totally see where he fits in. So, he could be another one of those potential sleeper picks here towards, and probably on day 3, honestly. Maybe late day 2, but probably someone who's going to be drafted somewhere in the 4th, maybe even 5th round, and providing some awesome value for an NFL team. But, guys, that is going to do it for my updated 2023 cornerback rankings. I've given you 18 names. Who did I leave off that you think I'm crazy for not including today? Let me hear that down below in the comment section. But also, let me hear your rankings 1 through 5, 1 through 10, whatever is best for you. Love to hear your thoughts. And, of course, give me some feedback as well on the new graphics and the order of how we did this video. I'd love to know if you prefer this or what we have previously done throughout these position rankings. But hopefully you all enjoyed. Be sure to hit that like button if you did. And subscribe if you're new. But that is going to do it for me. Hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. And until next time, my name is Teach, and I am signing off.